How do Amazon's top 5 rated chef's knives perform when tested by a chef? And Jamie. How's it going, boys?
All good,
Really
all good.
Very interested in this.
Who gets to test 5 knives side by side before going to buy them? You don't. So this is
That's
great.
what we're here for. So under the tea towel, we have 5 knives ranging from £12 to £200. Have a look at what you'll be testing today.
Excellent.
Wow. Although they're the same size, there's a real range of design. So the handles are made from different things. The size of the blade, design of the blade, interesting.
So what you have in front of you are the Zylis Comfort 7.25 inch chef knife, the Mercer Culinary Millennia 8 inch chef knife, the Wusthof Classic 8 inch chef knife, the Shun Cutlery Classic 8 inch chef's knife, and the Powdin 8 inch chef knife.
So interesting, I recognise, I think only one brand actually, but then I can't remember the last time I bought knives, so I'm not really in the market for buying and observing what new brands are, but there's some I definitely recognise. I think for me, the handles are the biggest giveaway.
We're not going to reveal any of the prices to you until the very end, because this is actually all about straight out the box, feel, precision, sharpness, and we're going to hopefully get to some conclusions by the end of the day, and we're going to see how your top 5 ranked matches against the Amazon's best rated. Shall we get into some testing?
Yes.
Let's try round 1, sharpness. So before we get tested, when it comes to buying chef knives, there are tons of buzzwords that will keep popping up over and over again. So here's what they actually all mean. German steel knives are workhorses. They're typically made of a softer steel, which actually makes them tougher and more durable. Rockwell hardness, or HRC, measures that soft versus hard. The majority of chef's knives tend to sit in the mid-50s to low 60s. Lower HRC means tougher and more durable, but you will need to hone and sharpen more often. Therefore, German knives tend to sit in the mid-range between 55 and 58 HRC, whereas Japanese knives are much harder. These tend to sit at the harder 60 to 63 HRC rating and have a finer edge angle at 10 to 15 degrees. So these feel laser sharp. They also stay sharper for longer, however twisting, scraping and hard impacts can cause chipping. And finally, Damascus. Now, in most cases, this just refers to the swirled pattern or layered steel that you find on knives. It can improve durability and flexibility, but mostly just looks really cool. When it comes to performance, it's best to consider all the stuff we've spoken about previously, not the swirls. So there you have it. Let's see if that affects anything when it actually comes to the testing. So, the boys are testing using the classic tomato slicing test. How well does the blade of the knife penetrate the skin of the tomato? How thinly can they slice it? Knife by knife should give them a very good indication of sharpness straight out of the box.
Good news, works left-handed.
Doesn't have any weight behind this knife. The knife's sliding through the tomato, but also at various points, it feels like it stops and you have to put more pressure in.
Interesting ergonomics. You're right about the weight. It's very light.
Second knife,
Bigger, heavier, chunkier.
rubber handle. I'm not a massive fan of a rubber handle on a knife. Instantly, the weight of the knife feels so much better than the first one.
It feels a bit overkill for a tomato. Because it is so thick and heavy, you're right, you're not going to get as wafer thin slices, but it's still, you know, as you'd expect out of the box, factory sharp. Number 3.
Picking this one up for the first time, it's the first knife that feels balanced. That was an instant difference. That was like butter. That was like a, yes. That is the easiest one so far.
Glides through, feels good. The hand and the weight, everything feels right about it, but it's still razor sharp.
Ooh, okay. I would say not quite as buttery as the Wusthof, but more like butter that's just come out the fridge.
Okay.
There's some resistance there, but not as much as...
So a firmer Japanese to a buttery German.
Yes, yeah. In terms of the sharpness, I'm definitely getting a bit more resistance.
You can actually hear it. You can hear it going through the skin.
Yeah, try that. Ow, I poked myself.
Have you just stabbed, have a look at your finger.
I've stabbed myself there.
Have you just cut, on a knife video, have you already just pierced skin? No, you got away with it. That's a beautiful blade. I actually really like that. And finally,
The Paladin.
That is comfortable. That is a very comfortable hold. Again, you can hear the cut in that one, but it does glide straight through. That is a very comfortable knife and very easy to cut with.
and it is giving really lovely thin slices. Another ergonomic knife, really sharp, as you'd expect straight out the box.
Okay boys, having tested our 5 knives, now I'm going to ask you to each rank them 1 to 5 in order of sharpness. 1 being the sharpest, 5 being the least sharp.
Number 5, Mercer. I just didn't get what I needed from that in terms of sharpness. Number 4, the Xylus. Too lightweight, didn't help with the sharpness. Number 3, I think was the Shun. Liked it, but it just didn't compare to the other 2. Number 2, the Paladin, and number 1, the Wusthof. That, to me, just felt like the best glide and cut.
Ebbers.
With the huge caveat that we're talking just tomato, I completely agree with Jamie.
Fantastic, very interesting so far. Shall we move on to testing round 2?
Yeah.
Let's test comfort and ease of use. Before we get stuck into the next test, let's very quickly go through the anatomy of a knife. Starting with the blade, it's the cutting bit. The edge does the work and the tip is used for detail work. The spine is the thick top for strength. The heel is the powerhouse at the back of the blade. The bolster is the thick transition from blade to handle. The tang is the portion of the knife blade that extends into the handle. And finally, the butt. Always end on the butt. So in order to test this, we're looking for repetitive or intricate tasks. We'd like you to julienne some carrot, to dice some shallots, and to mince some garlic.
Nice pointy end. I can't get a rhythm.
Yeah, it's a funny curve to it.
Don't like that at all. I feel like I'm just cutting the board because of the shape of it.
So you were asking earlier about what the indentation was on the top of the blade.
Yeah.
It's for you to rest your hands on so that you can do a rocking motion and should be more comfortable.
That's a nice logic, I like that.
Sounds useful, but I can do that on any knife, can't I? I can't get into any rhythm with this. It's getting stuck on the board.
It's a funny shape, it's sharp enough, it's thin enough, it's not great. Light enough that you're not going to get tired doing it for an awful long time, but part of its lightness is also its negative, I think. It's an odd place to be.
I'll practice my julienne then, shall I? Going through the carrot as a whole was hard. Now I'm into it, that's a lot simpler. I can get more of a rocking motion with this than I could with the Xylus.
For crushing and mincing, actually that big blade is really good with a little bit of salt as well on the board to give you a good mince of ingredients like that. No denying, still sharp, good rock, really chunky because you can see how little of the knife I'm actually having to use because it's so big, but bigger things would change that. I wouldn't say comfort that it really gets there. It's got a weird almost stickiness to the rubber, a funny weight and an odd bolster. The ratio of bolster and angle to blade is a bit odd.
Wusthof time.
Ooh! Oh, now that's a nice, that is very smooth, incredibly nice to hold, and the bolster is very smooth coming up, so actually your finger doesn't get caught on anything, it's not, I like that.
Whilst it is a heavier, bigger knife, it is still super fine for getting fine slice, comfortable, weighty, good for rocking and chopping, and I think personally, for my small little hands, a good ratio of blade to handle. Going to Japan.
Again, I really like the rounded bolster. I feel like that's really comfortable. The blade feels longer than the handle on this one. Nice rock. It's the first rounded handle, which I think is quite comfortable.
Feels light and easy. Feels like you could almost go into battle with it. Lots of repetitive work. You're not going to get tired with this knife because it's light, but it's sharp, but it's ergonomic.
It's got a slightly harsher bolster, which I feel like I don't know whether it's just my soft hands, but I tend to get blisters when I do a lot of repetitive cutting.
Knife rub.
I feel like I might get quite a bit of knife rub from that. However, it is nicely balanced.
Really lovely tip.
Thank you.
Super sharp. And you've got, because of the shape and weight of the knife, you've got control to get the accuracy of that tip. Still balanced, still comfortable. I agree, a slightly edged bolster that doesn't make it quite as smooth.
Okay lads, having tested, what are your final thoughts and rankings for comfort and ease of use?
5th place, Xylus. 4th place, Mercer. 3rd place, the Powdin. 2nd place, the Shun. 1st place, the Wusthof. The shape of the bolster and how comfortable that is to hold over time is something I've never really thought of, and how big an impact that has. But that's why the Powdin and the Wusthof really stuck out to me as good knives.
For fear of repetition, exactly the same. I would say don't fall into the trap of the marketing, because this tells you that the dimple is ergonomic for mincing, you just don't need it. It also tells you that it's shaped for your fingers. Now, if your fingers are there, you're not holding the knife properly. Finger around a bolster, you've got so much more control. It means this little dimple is a waste of everyone's time. You'll notice that our least favourite knives, the bolster comes at an angle this way to the blade. Some of them come straight, and arguably one of the more comfortable to use almost goes the other direction. The curve goes that way, like your hand would when it's open, whereas this one, you're holding it like that.
Yeah. Thank you boys, locked in your rankings. Let's move on to our 3rd and final test, versatility. So to test versatility, we have some rump steak for the guys to thinly slice into stir-fry pieces to really test how these knives handle meat, but also fat.
I mean, it's going through the fat and the meat absolutely fine. It's more just getting stuck on the board that I can't get past, and I don't know why.
I mean, nothing wrong with the sharpness. Again, any knife out of a box is going to be razor sharp. What happens after a week, a month, a year, 10 years? Where does it look? How do you look after it? Such an important part of knife care. This reminds me of the kind of knife you get in self-catered accommodation. But it's slicing through, it's doing the job.
Oh, now that is much easier than the first one. You can hear how it's going through. I think, like you said earlier, Ebbers, the fact that this is bigger and heavier, it feels more like a meat knife.
Completely agree. That is an absolute dream on this, actually. Really sharp, really nice weight to it, cutting through both meat and fat equally. Zero issue with that.
Great.
That's very smooth. I'm not seeing any issues going through the fat.
The most frustrating thing for me is the knife not immediately going through bits of gristle or bits of loose, stringy fat.
But having the ability and the thickness at the top to be able to hammer down when needed, have a go on that, please.
You've got still the ability to have the weight to go through, but even how smooth it is after the cut.
Again, that is a very smooth cut. I'd say it's pretty much on par with the Wusthof, actually. We've talked about it with pans before, but how much do you change what you're doing because of the knife versus how much does the knife help you do it better?
Yeah, I want a knife that's going to help me do the things that I need to do, but I do want to be using the knife correctly.
Yeah.
And finally, onto the Powdin.
That is buttery again. Very smooth. I think that's got a better angle than the Shun, actually.
Excellent all-rounder, but I just sense that whether you're doing a little bit of fish, skinning, filleting, meat, hardy veg, even the sort of tomato vibe, another good all-rounder, just not quite as comfortable.
So now, you've been through the knives and tested a variety of ingredients. Where do you rate these on versatility?
It's no big surprise, but the Xylus is coming in 5th place for me. I actually really liked the Mercer in that round because I thought the meat was a really good test for it and it worked really nicely. But it still didn't compare to these three, so that's still my number 4. Between 2 and 3, it's still really close, but the comfort has to come into the versatility because I know that I need to be able to use it across a whole range of different things. So Powdin number 3, Shun number 2, Wusthof number 1.
I think my bottom three are the same, but I think as Versatility and all-rounder, these are neck and neck.
The Shun and the Wusthof, joint first.
I prefer the Shun for the finer details, whereas the Wusthof has a bit more weight to it, a bit more kind of all-rounder, but with maybe leaning more towards butchery and your pumpkins and your squashes and your celeriacs. And the only other thing, if we're talking about durability, that's got a really solid heel. So when you're doing work and you're kind of moving quickly, if it gets knocked or any time when it's dropped or whatever, has more durability than that blade, which goes really thin at the end. And whilst good for putting nicks in stuff, if you're using it deliberately and cautiously, is more likely, I think, to damage over time.
Well, before we reveal answers, I found this absolutely fascinating. I've learned so much already. If you've also enjoyed this and this style of video, then check out the playlist here, but also in the link down below where our chefs test and review other kitchen tools and items. Right, do you feel like you've got enough info to be able to do an out-the-box testing top 5?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so before we lock in your answers then, let's reveal some prices. The Xylus, it's £11.50.
Okay.
Expected?
Good value.
The Mercer Culinary Millennia, £27.22.
Quite a jump up.
Yeah, that is a jump.
The Wusthof, £112.
Woo.
Excellent value.
The Shun Cutlery Classic, £199.99. And the Powden 8-inch, £21.
Remarkable.
What? That might change some things. In 5th place, the Xylus. Yes, it's cheap, but I don't think that it does everything that I want it to do in the way I want it to do it. In 4th place is the Mercer. I think in terms of all-round versatility and comfort, it doesn't do it for me, even though it does some things really well. Now, before you mention price, my 2 and 3 were interchangeable, and they've interchanged again. So I think in 3rd place, given price, I'd put the Shun. I think it's so expensive, I can't imagine spending that much money on a knife. In 2nd place, the Powden. Yes, it was slightly less comfortable than the Shun, but for that price, that's astonishing. And I think my number 1 was the Wusthof as a complete all-rounder. That feels to me like a very durable, very versatile knife that I could use for a long time.
There's a conversation about being fit for purpose and about being fit for audience. If you're talking about where I now think this sits.
Yes.
Xylus number 5, out of the box, good, won't last you very long. Mercer number 4, chunky, bold, pretty good all-rounder, but even more uncomfortable to use, especially if you're having to do buckets and buckets and buckets of spuds. And then these 3, and I think, out of the box, I'm matching Jamie. The Shun is an excellent knife. I particularly liked it for the finer details. It's very comfortable to hold. It's beautifully sharp. It's incredibly expensive. Then the Powden. I liked it a lot. It was pretty close to this except for comfort in terms of its shape. The fact that it comes in a lovely presentation box and at that price is remarkable.
Too remarkable.
Made in China, you have to question manufacturing processes to get something of that, I think, quality that cheap. But I don't know.
Good point.
And at £112, you said, there is a bit of confirmation bias. I do like Wusthof. I think they're great knives. They stand the test of time. And that kind of middle ground on price, more or less, will last you a lifetime.
Both going for the exact same order. Let's find out what Amazon reviews as of the time of filming say. In 5th place, the Shun Cutlery Classic with a 4.6 star rating from 2,062 reviews.
Excellent knife. That surprises me to be lowest, but I guess it's always value for money coming into these conversations as well.
The other way of looking at it is, it's the 5th best rated knife on Amazon.
In 4th place, and probably no surprise, the Xylus Comfort 7.25, a rating of 4.6 again, but with more reviews at 4,688.
Solid, and I feel like first homeowners, students going off to university, where you are having to buy everything up front, it's a good knife.
In third place, the Paladin 8-inch chef knife, 4.7 star rating off of 3,735 reviews.
I mean, excellent. Again, anything 4.6 above with thousands of reviews, I'm kind of trusting.
Yeah.
And in second place, with a 4.7 rating from 54,824 reviews, is the Mercer Millennia.
Wow.
What a popular knife.
Midweek cooking, when you're not having to do kilos and kilos of prep, that is a perfectly good knife. You don't have to worry too much about ergonomics because you're only using it for a few minutes each time. It's a good all-rounder.
Which means our Wusthof takes top spot, exactly in line with what you both said. A 4.8 rating with 2,611 reviews. What's the takeaway from this? What do we look for? What stood out to you?
I think before buying a knife off Amazon, go and feel some knives and find out what's comfortable for you and whether you prefer a bolster going that way or that way, a rounded one or a square one. The balance, like what works for you personally is going to be very different to what works for 54,000 people reviewing something on Amazon.
I agree, and knowing what you're buying it for. Is this a lifetime purchase or not will skew you one way or the other. I would normally say you get what you pay for. I feel like there's been a couple here that have really pointed out a difference, because I'm not sure that's 9 times better than that one. But I do think you have to question how that's so cheap. Stick German.